Okay. Call to order the February 9th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, 2022. Please raise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, can we have roll call, please?
Vice Chair Dothett,
Here.
Commissioner Greenberg, Chair Twait is absent, Commissioner Fikes is absent, Commissioner Halstead,
Here.
Commissioner Woodard, here. You have a quorum.
Okay, and we'll be on item A3, agenda approval. Do I have a motion to approve agenda as written?
So moved.
A second?
I'll second.
Any objections? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. And then we'll go on to A4. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
A second.
Are there any objections? Seeing none, the consent agenda is approved. Looks like we have public comment will be C. Seeing none from the public, we'll move on to unscheduled public comment. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak to anything at this hearing? I see nobody here. Anybody on Zoom? I don't think so. Nope. All right. Looks like item E, consideration of plats, there are none. Public hearings, there are none. We'll just move on through. Unfinished business, seeing none. Right on to item H, new business. And this will be action approval item recommendations to the City Council for the execution of a lease to the State of Alaska Division of Forestry for Lot 4A FBO subdivision number 11. Do I have a motion to recommend the City Council approve executive order of execution of lease to the State of Alaska Division of Forestry, Lot 4A, FBO subdivision number 11?
I move we approve recommendation to the City Council for the execution of a lease to the State of Alaska Division of Forestry, Lot 4A, FBO, subdivision number 11.
A second.
We can get a staff report, please.
Thank you, Vice Chair Douthat and fellow Planning and Zoning Commissioners. Staff's presentation is on the application for a lease for the State of Alaska Division of Forestry. Commissioners might remember last year that there was a special use permit for the Division of Forestry on this lot 4A. Actually, on page 15 of the packet, you can see that subdivision, FBO subdivision number 11. And this had the lot line adjustment for the city's sand storage facility. At the time, that was going through the subdivision process. The current lease expired in June of 2021. So at the time, we didn't have the ability to extend a lease. So that's why the Division of Forestry put in for a special use permit. Now that special use permit does expire June 30th of 2022. At this time, they put in for a 5-year lease, and that is based on some improvements you can see in their application, and you kind of see drawn on their site plan on page 14. There's 2 improvements. One is a concrete containment area, as well as a 3-phase electrical service improvements. And that's approximately $10,000 value of improvements proposed, which per code would allow them to put in for a 5-year lease. The this is zoned, for this use, airport light industrial. They've been operating for many years, I believe over a decade. The use would continue, and that would be an air tanker reload base for wildland fire prevention and suppression. Find that our code, the zoning code as well as the comp plan supports this, and especially in goal 7 of our comp plan related to natural hazards and disasters, to prepare and protect the citizens of Kenai from natural hazards and disasters. Objective NH1, implement the 2016 hazard mitigation plan strategy, which does have strategies and goals related to wildland fire prevention, and that's exactly what this does for not only the city of Kenai, but also the Kenai Peninsula Borough. The question in front of the commission is, does the commission recommend council approve the execution of the lease to the State of Alaska Division of Forestry? That concludes my presentation, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Ask the commission, is there any commission for discussion?
Question, just why such a short-term lease? It seems like all of our leases are 100-year leases, and all of a sudden we got a super small, like 5 years, seems like drop in the bucket.
Through the Vice Chair, Commissioner Halstead, it's in code. So in the section of code for Title 21, lands within the airport reserve, there is essentially like a schedule for the dollar value improvements. The more the dollar value goes up, the longer of a lease that we can, or really the applicant can apply for. The $10,000 does meet the threshold for a 5-year lease, and I don't think, I'd have to check the code, but I don't think they can actually get any more. They can't request anything more than 5 years with $10,000 of improvements.
And I just have one question on that. So in 5 years, will they have to file for another improvement, or can they just ask to extend another 5 years?
Vice Chair Douthit, so there's a couple ways in renewing leases. One can be new improvements, so they could, let's say, theoretically in 5 years, they could come forward with new improvements. Again, they'll have to meet the minimum, threshold in our code. There is a possibility to utilize the value of the improvements on the property to renew lease as well. So those are options to move forward with lease renewals.
Thank you.
So that's the value of the pile of dirt. Like, really hope dirt prices go up.
Any other comments or questions? Gary, do you have anything?
We think there's something going on with your mic. We can't hear you. Can you try maybe using a different mic or something?
Somebody say helium.
I'm sorry, it's coming out really high pitched and we cannot understand you.
What's the facial expression at the end? In all fairness, when I did Zoom, this is what everybody sounded like on my end of Zoom. It was crackling because the second you turn your face, it breaks up and you can't hear it. So it's not the greatest on Zoom either. I don't know if you had that before.
He says it looks good. DOF isn't an important resource at the airport. All right.
Thank you. All right, so with that, I'll call for a vote for roll call.
All right, Commissioner Halstead,
Yes.
Commissioner Woodard,
Yes.
Vice Chair Doffett,
Yes.
Commissioner Greenberg. You can also turn on your camera and give us a thumbs up or something. Oh, he says yes. Okay. All right, motion passes.
All right, with that, we'll be on to item new business H2, action approval, City of Kenai fiscal year 2023-2027 capital improvements plan. I'll put a motion. Do I have a motion to recommend the City Council approve the capital improvements plan fiscal year 2023 to 2027?
I move we approve the City of Kenai fiscal year 2023-2027 capital improvement plan.
Second.
And if I can get a staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair Doffett. Gary, I'm going to have a hard time following you, buddy. That was awesome. For the record, you have no idea what's going on, but you sound like a 3-year-old on helium on our end. So it was awesome, for the record. So what you have before you? First, I appreciate the opportunity coming to meet with you guys this evening. The capital plan that we have before you this evening. We started this about 3 years ago in this formal of a level, putting this document together with some little, more detailed narratives and some photographs and things like that. It's a little different than what they did in prior years. What I would like to just touch on some of the highlights for you guys. So it's a 5-year plan. This plan actually has about $100 million worth of projects identified with it. And for a city of our size, that's an astronomical amount of money. I mean, it'd be the first thing that I would ask with, as a member of the community looking at this, $100 million in identified capital projects. I would say, as many of you know, here recently, the Army Corps of Engineers did recently award a $28.1 million grant to the city for the Kenai Bluff Stabilization Project. That is a majority of the projects that are identified within the general fund. Additionally to that, the city has a long-standing history of work with the FAA at the airport and projects out there. As you recall, we recently completed the airport terminal rehab project, which is about $14 million. We also recently finished some improvements at the Alaska Regional Fire Training Facility, which is where Beacon currently resides next to Walmart over there, that facility over there. That was a $6 million investment that went into that property recently. The large project that we have on our radar for the airport is a runway rehab project. And it's actually been on the capital plan at the airport for several years. So this has been on the FAA's radar for several years. This is not a surprise. Our team has been working towards getting this project to fruition. We've been doing, there's required studies and things like that we have to do to prove the condition of the runway and that the work is warranted to move forward. And we've been doing all of that here in the recent past. But so just looking at some of the totals. So $100 million total over this 5-year plan. The airport is comprised of about $45 million of that total. The general fund is about $43 million. And again, those are the two large pieces of both of those, this bluff stabilization project and the runway rehab. The water and sewer fund has got $13.7 million worth of projects identified. The senior center, congregate housing, and PU fishery have much smaller pieces associated. Senior center's got $200,000 over 5 years. Congregate housing, which is Vintage Point, that's the apartment complex over there, adjacent to the senior center. There's $450,000 within the plan for that property. And then the PU fishery, we've got $185,000 towards that. So the vast majority of funding is all within the airport fund, general fund, and water sewer fund. Water and sewer fund, we are expecting, everyone watches the news, and there's, one of these days there's going to be some infrastructure money. It's already kind of coming to fruition. We'll be competing for that money along with every other municipality within the state. But I would expect that we're going to get some grants at some point for that. Some of the improvements that we've been doing down there recently, when I got here, so I've been with the city 4 years now, and the wastewater plant that we have down there on the beach, that was by far and away the most distressed, property that we had. That facility went, almost 15 years with very minimal investment down there. So really the last couple of years, that's been a huge focus of mine as the Public Works Director, is getting outdated equipment replaced with new and updating our processes down there. We've been very successful in that. 4 years ago, our utility costs on that property were $500,000 a year, and we've cut that in half, in this amount of time, which is one of the things that's helping us fund some of these projects. So those savings are one of the reasons why we haven't had vast increases in the fees, at the properties, because we've been able to reduce some of our operational costs down there. But we do. Those savings were largely the result of replacing what's known as aeration blowers down there. They're the largest consumer of electricity that we have on the property, and we replaced 3 of those with 3 brand new ones, and we have 2 other ones that have not yet been replaced that run the digester. It's a little different process down there, not to bore you with a bunch of wastewater work, but it's basically 40-year-old pieces of equipment that it was never built to be very efficient. And we rely on it to run virtually 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So it's a vital piece of equipment. And we're one of the larger projects that's associated within this fund is replacement of those digester blowers. And we are expecting, for when that is done, for that to continue to save on those energy costs as well, which is only going to help us as we go forward, with doing additional repairs on the property. So this was a big undertaking on this. This was, really every department contributed to this. Many of the commissions participated in evaluating, bringing projects forth for consideration, and most of this was hashed out, late last summer, going into early fall. I started vetting these out last quarter of last year in preparation for this getting presented to the administration and eventually to council. It's a great asset for our city. It really helps direct our spending towards the highest priority items, that we have as a city. And it gives us a lot of credibility when we deal with state agencies and federal agencies and stuff, that we're actually planning. These aren't things everything's not a surprise to us. We're planning for these things. So it helps. It gives us the ability to get access to other grant funds and stuff that we might otherwise not have access to. So we're pretty proud of this. This is a lot of effort. Definitely, it's worth taking some time. I do encourage all citizens actually to flip through it. Just curious to see, some of the projects that we have and some of the priorities that we're hoping to address here. This is a living document, so it's not to say that things do pop up. This does fluctuate year to year based on the needs of the city. So if we ran into a situation where we had a emergent need come up, here recently we've been doing some stormwater projects. If a stormwater project started causing a roadway failure or something like that, we would move that project up on our priority within that. So it is somewhat flexible year to year, and it is evaluated every year. This isn't a 5-year plan where we do it and 5 years later we come back to it. It's an ongoing living document. So, but I greatly appreciate you guys taking some time to look at it, and more than happy to answer any questions that you guys have. And I would appreciate the support and making a motion that we move this document forward to council, recommending their approval. And then we'll just remind you guys as we move forward through the summer months, as things come up, if people have opinions on potential projects or other things to focus our attention on the city, I'm always appreciative to hear those. So happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
I'm curious with the government spending money like there is no end to it. If one of these comes along and all of a sudden the money's gone, then what happens? You just abort the plan?
So we don't start any project without having the money to start the project. So, and you know, generally once the money arrives, it doesn't go away until the completion of the project. So as a city, really the only risk that we would have is if we did not perform in a way that we described that we would to the granting agency. So that doesn't matter if it's a state agency or the FAA or Army Corps of Engineers. You know, the money comes with strings, and you have to abide by those strings all the way through the duration of the project. And the project goes to close out, and we all kind of settle up. So, but yeah, generally the funding doesn't show up and then get yanked away from you.
But if there is no money, I mean, if it gets to where, I mean, they run out.
Sure.
It's like they're trying to make it run out.
Well, so which is a very honest and good point. It does. It happens all the time. I can tell you, in years past, when money was more available, the city was accustomed to getting about $4 million a year annually in grants for various things to operate the city. And then that just stopped. It just dried up. So, which is frankly one of the reasons why some of our infrastructure, you know, we were getting used to having money coming in, and then that money stopped showing up, and you know, we stopped being able to complete, you know, maintenance type projects. So that's what happened. So yeah. So if anything in this plan, and there's a likelihood. I mean, you know, I described. You know, the Army Corps project was, you know, roughly 30 million. We've got another 30 towards the airport. That's 60. There's still $100 million worth of, you know, projects presented here, and there will be, you know, an amount of these that will not get funded, and those will get moved, you know, and until, you know, such time as the priority, it becomes such a high priority, they would be one of the first projects that we would, you know, attack with whatever funding we do have available. So yeah, it'll just essentially get mothballed until such time that we do have money.
Okay, thank you. I can't find it now, but I did see somewhere in here about the lights, the street lights. And we had a street light on our corner. Somebody ran into it and knocked it down about 42 years ago. And it's still gone. And then the other light at the other end of the street, which is up against woods, doesn't work. And so we're in a very dark area. How do you go about getting those fixed and or put back?
So we have an annual service contract that we fund as part of the normal operational budget for the city. So in our annual budget that'll go to council, there's an actual street lighting budget that covers the utility costs, pays the electric bills, and it also has some maintenance dollars included in there for doing, you know, routine maintenance and replacing photo cells and light bulbs and things like that. We do a service contract currently that's under Ketchimek Electric. Last year, the last firm that we had on that kind of overbooked themselves, and they didn't have the manpower to really support us in the way that we had hoped. So the time delay was much worse last year than it has been this year. So Ketchimek's been much more responsive, but we're also running into supply chain issues on certain things. So when they go out, if there's something that is an easy fix, a light bulb, for example, or a breaker, we had a power surge and it tripped a breaker. You know, those are things that we generally can fix relatively quickly when they're out there. We've had some, like you said, with an accident, those we have to potentially order a new fixture. I have several right now that we have line breaks, and they're going to require excavation and finding where somebody dug something up, either during a construction project. Some of the things we've noticed is NSTAR's been replacing gas lines in many neighborhoods throughout the city, And I suspect that they, through their boring under the road, they can't see. And I think they've hit several of our lines. I won't know until we go over there and dig it up, but I will be able to find that out eventually. We can trace the line back to the point of failure and find out what caused the break. But certainly right now, I've got 4 feet of snow, some 6 feet in some locations at the edge of curb. And we're going to have to wait till, May, June before we can start, digging those up and repairing those. Yeah, so the odds are if you have a light that's been out for an extended period of time, it's likely due to that it's going to require excavation and redoing some of the wiring at that location. I can tell you since July 1st, we fixed 49 lights since in the last 7 months. So, which is a lot for our town. That's a
Thank
lot.
you.
You're welcome.
I just want to, what I was telling Alex is what you're talking about with the streetlight improvement design is in the FY 2026. And I think Scott or Ryan can correct me, if you were wanting to see that moved up in the schedule, this would be a good time to maybe make that recommendation to move it up. Or I believe if there was something in the 2023 that you would like to see moved down, this would be the time to do that so that your recommendations are passed to the body, if that helps you at all, Ms. Woodward. And then my question for through the chair for Scott would be, my understanding, and maybe this will also add a little clarification, is when we're approving this 5-year plan, we're really looking at this 2023 because next year we're going to approve a 5-year plan, and so some of those things will change year to year. So as though we're constructing a 5-year plan, we're really allocating to this 2023. So that's going to be what the council's really going to look at, this 5-year plan, but some things will drop off maybe next year, or some things will be prioritized up off of need. So I just wanted to add that in there in the discussion. And then I just wanted to bring one more point to your question of, are we going to run out of money for these projects? And
The federal government.
yeah, I don't know if the federal government will ever run out of their monopoly money right now. But it is something to consider. I mean, this is something that council's considering as well. When we're looking at this in a 3-year hindsight, at 3 years, we could be coming to the people asking for a mill rate increase or a 0.9% sales tax increase. And it's going to be likely to get a 0.9% sales tax increase during the summer months when we have the higher amount of visitors in our area. So that looks like it's definitely on the administration's radar to bring to council in the upcoming years so that we can meet our infrastructure and these project needs. So just to put that out there, you guys have every right to look through this list and maybe reprioritize things if that would be within your recommendation for us. Thank you.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is, as Ms. Winger mentioned, page 30 and 31 are the two. So we have $80,000 for design for streetlights, and that's kind of going out and evaluating. We have different streetlight needs in different parts of the city. So a neighborhood has a little different than a main road might. So there's some differences there, but that's intended to go out and kind of identify, problem areas where we maybe want to extend lights into an area that doesn't already have them, or consolidate others. You'll notice our lights, we have city lights, and we also have HEA lights. When you look around town, if there's lights on a wooden pole, those are lights that they're actually owned by HEA, and we pay a monthly fee for them to be operated. And then we have other lights that go down, say Forest Avenue and Redoubt, for example. We actually own those, and they're more of a typical main thoroughfare type of light. And then the following fiscal year, currently in 2027, I have $400,000. And this is above and beyond the normal operational money that we would include. I would still continue to fund, as we do every year, for the regular, things that happen. Somebody hits a light pole with a car, or a photo cell goes out, or a light bulb. This is above and beyond that. This is really doing more than just maintenance work. It's doing bigger work. And we absolutely could consider, that's a fantastic point if we want to move that up or move it around. Council actually does have essentially 2 bites at the apple. The plan's going to get approved, and then the projects, as she mentioned, would go through the next budget, which would be included in the upcoming budget that formally gets, approved by council, generally in the first week of June, something like that. So the plan is just kind of letting everyone know kind of what we're aware of, what's going on in the city, what we see as priorities for the city, and kind of how we are thinking of directing of those funds. And this is based on input from all sources around the city, and we appreciate the quality of this document is as good as the data we put into it, right? So the more input we have, the better the document is, and so absolutely we appreciate that. Anything you guys have, and I would say the same for all years. We try to build the document through the summer months into the fall, and then I generally try to vet them out as far as even doing some estimating and viability on what, because a lot of times people that come to me with a project, they have no idea what does that cost. What are the steps that you need to go through to do that? So that's kind of where I come in. I kind of vet that out and kind of put it in a package where it's something we can actually go do, and then it makes its way into the document that you see before you today. So. But absolutely, any thoughts or opinions that you guys have on that would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you. I do have just a couple of comments, maybe a couple questions. I see the Willow Street rehabilitation, and it says it's going up to Airport Way. Is there any further rehabilitation from Airport Way to like Station 2 where it's just atrocious?
So thank you for the question. Yeah, so our intentions are, so this year we have some money. I already have some money that we're looking to do from Airport Way down to that area. So we've got some multiple phases of this project. And my goal is to get to the point where we're really going from Spur Highway all the way down to just past the animal shelter. You can actually see the road. It actually improves just past that for a little while.
I know it was bad enough for
drops off.
a long time ago that the medics couldn't even drive their ambulance. They had to go out onto the airport and go around it, but it's so bad. And it hasn't really improved in several years. And I just saw it on here, and I was wondering if that was something that was part of that or if it just intentionally is stopping at
So
airport
we're facing it. So we're trying to pick off pieces that we can handle at a time. So, this year, my intentions this year are to do Wildwood Drive, get Wildwood done, and then get a portion of Willow done. And then we're gonna do multiple pieces to continue Willow. My goal is to get it all the way to the spur. But I'll give you an example. One of the challenges, everyone sees asphalt, everyone likes asphalt, right? It's not as simple as just coming in and putting asphalt down. So for me, in my job, in my role at the city, obviously, you want to spend dollars as effectively as you possibly can. And the last thing you want to do is put a finished product on a roadway that perhaps is covering pipes that need to get ripped out, of the ground. So, a lot of the pipes in that area are 50, 60 years old. We have some storm drain piping that's been deteriorating parts of the city. So while it's really easy to come up with a square foot price on putting asphalt down, you have to think about all the things that you're not seeing. What are the other things in the area? And it's not an easy thing to do. So I take my best guess at what we have available for information and try and determine what we should be replacing now and what we might be able to not have to replace for 20, 30 years until the next time the road comes up. And it's challenging. Different parts of town have different scenarios. So most of our city, was built 60s, early 70s, and everything's getting to that 50-year, time frame right now. So the last thing I want to do is spend $500,000 paving a portion of road and then have a water main break underneath it, and I got to go tear up that nice brand new road and fix a pipe that just failed. So that's what we're trying to avoid, and that's why I'm trying to do these things in sensible pieces.
All right, thank you. And I just had I noticed it said the outdoor event park and design feasibility. Has there been locations discussed on that, or is that part of this feasibility study?
T, you might know more than I do on that. So that's a Parks and Rec Commission project that was brought forward. I know Bob Frady's our director that recently retired. That's been on his radar for 10 years, I want to say. Is it Millennium Square? Is that the primary?
It would be Millennium Square, and I think it's within the feasibility study of the Millennium Square. So there was a study done. I believe that that would be at the in the field, kind of right behind Louis, is the area that they were considering to put that in. I know there had been talks about maybe putting one over by the Dobbin Spec, since the theater is going in there, that it may be a good location with that theater to have one in that area. But right now, from everything I've understood, it's that Millennial Square right kind of behind Louis that they're already kind of using for Parks and Recs events.
Yeah, and these are all tied together too. I know like the Bluff Stabilization Project has been talked about for 40 years, and that was a big for that particular area over there. Some of the concern was that nobody wants to spend a bunch of money in that location if they think the bluff's going to go away. Nobody's going to want to put a nice facility up. So I know these things are all kind of tied together a little bit. And as far as if we get that gets protected and that goes in, it's going to increase interest in actually developing potentially that area. So. And the waterfront as well. So, exactly. So,
I guess, and then just lastly, I'm not sure exactly how we'd go about this, or if I need to make a motion or whatever. But I see the Kenai Nordic Trail lighting design, structure lighting for the golf course for the $200,000 on that. Just from what I've heard in the community and kind of what we're seeing, I'd really think it might be more of a priority to look into more moving up, maybe even just a portion of the street lighting to that, and then pushing that back further. Just seems like a very small portion of the actual use per year and per the total use of by the community, how many use it. It doesn't get used year round, and there's a lot more concern about street lighting and kid safety on the dark streets during Halloween and all that kind of stuff. I would like to see that possibly moved to a later date and pushed up the street lighting funding into that category. I think that might be a better use of our funds at something that might be more of a public safety than just a nicety. And I hate to say it like that, but that's where I see that. I'm not sure how we would go about wording something like that, or if something we just need to bring up.
I was actually intending on putting something, consolidating comments and putting it back to council myself anyway. Unless you, it's up to you on what do you think's the most.
Okay, we don't really have any legislation to amend specifically, but
Let them know, basically.
sure, this will be compiled in the minutes, and then also we'll take
Right.
comments as well.
Okay, thank you. Well, that would be my recommendation, is to see that, we could take that $200,000 that's budgeted there for streetlight improvements and maintenance. It seems like there's a lot of concern about that. I know it came up in our subdivision this fall, and there's a lot of that infrastructure that I think might go more towards a public safety issue. I think that might be a better use of the funds at this time, and still have this on there, but maybe push it back to a lower priority, so to speak.
Absolutely.
That would be mine. Thank you.
Well, I would still, so what I would like to do is I'd still like to make a motion to approve the plan as is. I'm going to present these things. Council will have the ability to amend it, and they'll do that based on, the input that they, receive. They'll take it into consideration. And that's really what they've asked of me. They want to know, what feedback did we get? So I would, I'm going to document, all the, input that I receive from all commissions that I attend, and I'll put that in a memo, which will go to council for their consideration with the receipt of that, and then they'll direct me to amend or not amend that document before it goes into its final. And I'll likely be presenting the council in person in that capacity anyway. So I think that'd be the easiest. Without, like you said, we don't have a legislation on the floor to act tonight. So.
Okay, and Councilwoman Winger, do you have something?
That actually brought up one of my questions that a few of us on the council body had. The Nordic Trail lighting, I thought, was further down on the capital list. It looks like it got bumped up, because my understanding was the baseball dugouts were further up the need list with Parks and Rec. So I was a little shocked to get this list and see that the Nordic skiing kind of bumped up on their priority, but the dugout fields really dropped down there. What year was that?
2026.
Yeah, to 2026. And however, our baseball dugouts, we have a few over there that aren't usable. I think when you might have been at the baseball game that we did this summer, that one had nails and everything sticking out. There were safety concerns marked by city employees of homeless people sleeping in those. And when they come in there, they were waking people up and they were a little agitated. And so they were wanting to get out of that wood and going into a chain link. So for me, my understanding from serving on Parks and Rec and being involved was that was a lot higher on the list than the Nordic ski lighting. So I don't know if it's just because we've had a change in captains over there that bumped up. But I was a little shocked knowing that they had more of a need to fix the danger of the dugouts. Are you aware of the safety concerns at the dugouts?
Not to that extent, no. I
Yeah.
did know, I did hear some word about the homeless activity at one point. I did hear about that, but no. I can tell you, so I did not, and I want to be real clear with everyone, because so what I don't do, you know, this is not Scott's document, right? So this isn't like, this is what Scott says. That's not what this is at all. And we go through and through my department heads and commission heads, you know, they're generally the ones that are putting these within a fiscal year. You know, I'm showing them here project number 1 through, you know, whatever. That's not necessarily the priority within that year, but we are putting them in, you know, in a fiscal year. In which fiscal year they reside into, that did actually come from representatives from Parks and Rec. That didn't come from me. I don't know how they came to that, if that was formal at a meeting, because I wasn't at any of those meetings. But the location within this plan was as directed, as requested by those departments. But that is why we go through this process, right? So if the opinion is that maybe this one, is everyone aware that there's a safety issue? That's why we're doing what we're doing right now.
Just with Alex's comments, if we were to do, you guys were to move Nordic skiing down, you would be able to move the lighting up and the softball dugouts up, and that would be the same budget that for 2 projects that we would be getting for the one. So that's just some of the thought process, but we were just thank you for the clarification on why those had kind of swapped.
All right, so any other comments or questions about this document so far from the commission?
Is Gary, I saw the screen beep up there. Does Gary have a question?
Yeah, did Gary typing something?
I'm having trouble reading.
All right, Commissioner Greenberg says, does an executive summary of all projects and totals exist?
So basically what this is, this kind of is an executive summary in itself of this. So when you look at the narratives and stuff I have on there, that's really the intent that it is. It's meant to be a kind of giving you the highlights of what the project is, what's involved in it. But no, I don't have anything above and beyond what you see within the document.
Anna, Commissioner Greenberg asks, how do the totals compare to prior years?
So this plan, last year's plan was a pretty elevated number as well. I don't believe it was 102 million, but it was probably close. It's probably 90 because we had the Bluff project and the runway on there for several years now. I think the difference is this year we're going to be getting that money, which is, previous to this, it's all been out in the future. I think it's actually going to start coming to pass now. But I would also say that at the completion of those 2 projects, that this 5-year plan is going to drop significantly in future years. Again, $100 million capital plan for a city our size is, in any other case, likely a pipe dream. It's just not something you would see in a town of 7,800 people, generally speaking. the large projects are kind of throwing that out of whack a little bit. So I wouldn't be surprised as we get those projects completed that this drops down to a $50 million plan over a 5-year period of time. That would be my guess.
Okay, seeing no other comments, questions?
And I do want to say, if you guys do want to make a formal motion to amend your recommendation with conditions, I can help you do that. If you want to vote on it and have it in the record, I just wanted to make that clear. We would just take a little ad use, but that's up to you guys. Chair.
I don't think it's necessary at this time. The comments have been made. I think our council representatives have seen and heard our opinions on things too. So at this time, I guess I would go ahead and call for a vote on approval of the capital improvements plan recommendation to council for 2023 to 2027.
All right, Commissioner Greenberg?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Commissioner Halstead?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodard?
Yes.
Vice Chair Dothett?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Am I fixed?
Oh, yes, you are.
We can hear you. You don't sound like a chipmunk. Perfect.
Great. Right.
So moving on from there, we have items, pending items. I see none. And then I guess we'll go ahead and do reports, starting with reports from City Council. And Councilmember Winger.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dothett. I just again would like to say congratulations on your Vice Chair and I guess chairing your first meeting tonight. I just want to say, as much as Zoom is a struggle for some of us, I am thankful that we have the option to come participate via Zoom. And I just want to say I'm sorry I couldn't be in the last meeting. I was fighting off a horrible migraine, and it is nice to be able to still be able to Zoom in. And I appreciate Commissioner Greenberg for attending via Zoom. And I just would like to say thank you to the departments and Scott for coming and just all your guys' work. I mean, we know this document takes a lot of work to put together, and you guys spend, almost an entire year working on this document, and it doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you for bringing that forth to everybody. So City Council met last Wednesday, February 2nd. We heard we had 2 scheduled public comments, one from McCoy West on an update of our city marketing presentation. So what we're doing with our presentation is we're trying to, the whole marketing is about relocating to Kenai, and why Kenai is the part of Alaska to come to. So for the most part of the year, we are marketing to relocate to Kenai, and then we kind of switch gears in the summer and are marketing for tourism. And they gave us an update on that. They will be replacing the banners. They weren't happy with the banners, and they do have some new banners that they will be putting up that, my understanding, have some animals, better print. You can read it. Yeah, you couldn't see those or read the previous ones, and they took note of that. So they do have some new banners that will be going up. Then we heard from Brandy and Bill from the Alaska Permanent Capital Management on our 2021 financial performance, financial projections, a recommended 2022 asset allocation for the city's permanent fund investments. That presentation really went coincided with one of our resolutions or ordinances we had passed that night. So going into our agenda, we had Ordinance 3267-2022 authorizing COVID leave for city employees that test positive for COVID-19. That passed. With a substitute that kind of put some sidebars on how much money we would putting into COVID leave, So we put $110,000 into COVID relief, and then we allocated $50,000 into testing. That money came from a grant that was passed last year for a mobile vaccine clinic, and we had $220,000 of that grant that wasn't going to be utilized. So that's ultimately where we were able to use within the guidelines of that grant. So we did approve that. And we also approved Ordinance 3268-2022, which increased the estimated revenues and appropriations in the Water and Sewer Special Revenue Fund, and authorized a purchase order increase to the Alaska Waste for the sludge disposal services at the wastewater plant. Again, this is a great example of what Scott's doing over there. As he said, there was about 15 years of neglect to the building, and Scott's just really working on reining everything in to get us the most cost-effective solution in that department. We also passed ordinance number 3269, which was amending the Kenai Municipal Code and the land sale permanent funds to identify circumstances and limitation on the use of derivatives, investments, and to add 2 new classes of assets to the list of authorized investments, and to codify the applicable benchmark for which these assets classes would be measured and evaluated, which was part of the presentation we had heard earlier on. They were wanting to add in a beta class and a high yields bond class, and that just ultimately was to give us less risk with our investments. So ultimately, we would be getting a nice, strong return, but just with a little less risk for the city. Then we approved Resolution 2022-08, which is designating, investing, and allocating plan for the city's permanent funds and establishing appropriate benchmarks to measure the performance of our calendar year. We also confirmed Ms. Dothet's wife, Sarah, to the mini grant steering committee. And then we scheduled a work session for the draft land management plan, which will be March 7th here at Chambers at 5 o'clock. I would definitely ask that you come and participate with that. Our next meeting will be this upcoming Wednesday in Chambers at 6 o'clock, and I hope to see you all there.
Thank you for that report. Looks like Kenai Peninsula Borough Planning Commission Fikes is not here, so we'll skip on to the city administration, J3, and we'll have Director Foster.
Thank you, Vice Chair Douthat. I do have a couple items of note. I do have some great news. Katie Rector is our new planning administrator. Monday was her first day, and so her first planning and zoning meeting will be the next meeting on the 23rd. And so you'll get to meet her then, and just really very excited. And I'll just say she's hitting the ground running, and we're getting up to where we like to be. When it comes to department productivity. So very excited about that. The next item I have is on February 24th, there's a waterfront project visioning session. That's at 6 p.m. It's at the Chamber of Commerce and Visitors Center. I would encourage, commissioners or really anybody, you speak to who might have interest in the community attending. That's really what this visioning session is for. It's for folks in the community to attend the meeting. Our consultants will be leading, essentially the exercises is for attendees and breakout groups, and really just trying to create some ideas and vision for what the waterfront could be, and really having great participation is really what helps make this be a quality study. The next item I have is the American Planning Association annual conference is online. Again, this year, there is commissioner training. It is online. If any commissioners are interested in that, feel free to let me know, and I can send. And in fact, maybe I'll just send the commission. I'll send you a link that you can take a look at the dates for commissioners training, and just let me know if that's something that you'd be interested in booking, and we'd have funding to do that. And the last item I have is the February 23rd, our next regular meeting date, as well as we have a work session scheduled at 6, and that's going to be for with city clerk, city attorney, and myself presenting on processes, procedures, and Robert's rules, things like that. And then at the regular meeting at 7, we have 2 plats scheduled currently. And that's everything I have.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. And then we'll be moving on to item K, additional public comment. Is there anyone from the public wishing to testify? Seeing none. Move on to L, informational items. Seeing none. Looks like our next meeting will be February 23rd. There will be, on this it says, and just maybe for clarification on this, it says 5:30. Is it 6 o'clock?
I confirmed with City Clerk Sainer and City Attorney Bloom that it's going to be at 5:30.
Okay, so that will be, the work session will be at 5:30, looks like, on the 23rd. And is anyone planning on being absent for the 23rd meeting or work session? It's here. Anybody? Nothing? Okay. Did Gary have anything on that? No. Okay. And we'll move on to item N, commissioner comments and or questions.
What date did you say the Zoom class thing was? Or the online?
Yeah, through the chair, Commissioner Woodard. What I'll do is I'll send a link to all the commissioners that you'll be able to check on the dates for that. Yeah, I just don't remember off the top of my head which date it was. But if you take a look at what's being offered for training, and if you're interested, just let me know, and that's something we can help you get signed up for.
Thank you.
I've been on one of those commissioner actually a few of those commissioner training classes in the past, and that's a very useful tool that the city provides for us, which is awesome. It definitely gives you a good sense of the right way to phrase questions, ask questions, be a part of the process. So if anyone is thinking about it or on the fence of it, I would definitely say it's worth your time going to go. Some of them are a little dry, but for the most part, I've pulled away knowledge from all of those, so it was definitely worth my time.
All right, seeing no other comments. It was Greenberg. Oh, does Commissioner Greenberg have anything? Any comments? Is he trying to say anything?
Hey, Commissioner Greenberg, we saw that you unmuted, but we didn't hear anything on our end, if you had anything to say. We are still not hearing you if you're speaking. He says he's having technical difficulties. He says it is a nice-looking report.
All right, thank you. At that time, no other comments from the commissioners. Being no other business before the body, the meeting is adjourned. See ya.